here we are on Conversations from Drumroll with Julia Weatherholtz. Welcome.
Thank you.
I am Sarah DeVito, hosting today's program. So, Julia, welcome to Geneseo. You now live in the area, but you are originally from Richmond, Virginia.
Correct.
So, let us know a little bit about how you got from there to going to school here and ultimately really breaking out on the music scene in the town.
Sure, I'm from Richmond, Virginia, and I found American Sign Language while I was there. I did just local community college classes, and I never really thought that it would be something that I'd make into my career, but it's something that I just absolutely fell in love with. The community is amazing, the language is amazing, and so after I finished that very small program, it was just an associate's degree, and I wanted to see if there was potential to get a bachelor's degree. And so there's really only 2, 3, 4 schools in the country that offer a full-fledged bachelor's degree in interpreting, and RIT is one of them, because they have the National Technical Institute for the Deaf. And so I only applied there. I figured it's like RIT or bust. And so luckily I got in and moved here in the fall of 2019 and started my degree there. Music really wasn't on my radar, and I was just really trying to focus on getting my skills up and my language acquisition and everything. So this has just been a really nice surprise how it's all kind of unfolded.
Great. So what was it that pushed you to engage with music in Rochester?
So once I moved here, there's near RIT campus, there's a little group of shops, and one of them is a restaurant called Love and Cup. And I was driving by one day, and they had a big vocalist competition sign as well as open mics. So I had been doing the open mics like maybe 1 or 2 times before. That was my first open mic ever. Terrifying, but a really great atmosphere. The staff there is lovely, and it's a really welcoming environment. You never know who's gonna stand up at those things and what they're gonna do on stage. So yeah, I did that, and then found out about the vocalist competition, and it was kind of something that shocked me, myself, and everyone that I joined, but it's something exciting and scary, then it's kind of like a sign that you should do it, and it was exciting and scary, so I did it, and I didn't end up winning. That's okay. I can't remember how many people started, but they had to take a hiatus because of COVID, but I did make it to the final 3. The other 2 people who were ahead of me, they are so deserving, like they're really phenomenal, Miriam and Tremaine. But yeah, that was kind of like my foot into the door in the Rochester scene, as well as a really, really great way of networking with some of the really great musicians around the area.
Cool. So how did you jump from doing this vocalist competition, not taking it too seriously, to now you've been in 2 bands, kind of 3, one of them went by your name for a period. Yeah. So how did you navigate that situation after really not expecting to get involved in any serious capacity at all?
Right. It was really difficult, and it's something I still kind of struggle with a little bit. Yeah. It's very intimidating, it's very daunting. I get to play with musicians of extremely high caliber, and a lot of them have extensive musical backgrounds, master's degrees, 20 years under their belt, and then I'm just kind of like showing up and giving it my best shot. So it was rough at first, but honestly, I really owe so much of it to simply being at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
No more than that. It's just showing up, doing something that I like, everyone can see that I like it, and then just luck and like being in the right place at the right time, being open to seeing where each door leads you to, because one opportunity can string along the next and the next and the next, and so it's just kind of been a series of saying yes and just trying. And sometimes you land and sometimes you do not land, and that's cool. You just have to be willing to mess it all up and then try again.
So now you're in a band called Helium Balloon.
Helium Bubble.
Helium Bubble. But so now you're in a group called Helium Bubble, and you before that were in a group called Hot Soup. So before we get to your current project, tell us a little bit about Hot Soup, what that was for you, and kind of how that brought you to what you're doing now.
It's a funny story, actually. So going back to Love and Cup, after that competition, actually I think it was because of the break from COVID, I don't think it had technically finished. It was like a year later that it finished, if that makes sense. But I worked there because I really liked the atmosphere and I needed a job and it was close to campus. So I worked there for a while and the Adriana Noon band was playing one night and I was just bussing tables. I'm like covered in mac and cheese and like people spilled wine and stuff, you know, just dirty, cleaning up tables. And the owner, Leslie, had talked to Chuck Salvaggio, who's put this whole thing together. Or helped put this whole thing together, and they said, well, one of my employees, she sings, you should invite her on stage. And I'm sure that, you know, Adriana probably gets that all the time, but she was so sweet and gracious, and she just took a chance and was like, okay. And so they called me up, and I sang a song, and Chuck turned to me, and he was like, who are you? Like, let's be in a band. And I told him this before, but I was like, who are you? Like, what? Okay, I'm on duty, I'm working right now, but it all worked out. He told me, oh, just come to my jam shack in Geneseo, and like, I see it on the GPS, and there's nothing around. I'm like, okay. But like I said, it's a series of saying yes and a series of showing up. That's what I did, and again, right place at the right time. Adriana was such a saint for letting me do that, and then Chuck and Jeremy Grace were so kind to kind of kickstart my career and graciously gave me a band, pretty much. We had some different members throughout time, and they kind of let me just do whatever I wanted to do, and that was my first introduction to playing live music with a group of the same people. Cool. It was great. It was great.
Cool.
Hot soup.
Hot soup. Yep. So you mentioned kind of this rotating lineup situation, and I think that that's something that a lot of bands have going on, especially today where there are all these working musicians who have day jobs and then they really are passionate about music and in their free time want to play with other people. Obviously, for a person who's new to the scene, adjusting to that type of rotating lineup must be a little bit difficult, and I think a lot of people don't realize that that's a reality of modern kind of non-livelihood, like pursuing musicians. So what was that like, being able to become flexible in that way?
That's a good question. So at the same time this hot soup stuff was going on and I was working with them, I was also getting my feet wet in the jazz community, and that's kind of just how it goes for a lot of jazz gigs. There's this big repertoire of standards that you're supposed to learn or know, and typically from the American songbook, but it can be elsewhere. And you kind of just, for those gigs, specifically jazz, you kind of show up and someone calls out a tune, like, all right, we all know the song, okay, 3, 2, 1, go. And so you've never practiced before, oftentimes you've never met the other members of your band for the evening, you're just getting up there and you're just going. So that was incredibly scary at first, but I think the more it's just one of those things, repetition kicks in and you just get used to it, and that's actually kind of the thrill of some of those gigs, is being like, I don't know what's gonna happen, and we're listening real time and the audience is listening real time, so like, let's see what goes down. And so that translated really well into some of the hot soup stuff and the more like long-term band things, where we would have mostly the steady same people, but then some other people would kind of, not rotating door by any means, but like there would be
sitting in and whatnot.
Right, like some people coming in, some people coming out, and just life in general. So that helped a lot. But the musicians here, they're also used to it too. So it kind of, once you've done it for like 3 months, you just get used to it, and it's just part of the career.
Cool. So you are now in Helium Bubble. What is the genre that you guys perform, and what can a person who comes and checks you out expect?
That's a good question. We actually talk about that quite a bit. I don't know what to consider us, but it's definitely in the realm of jazz, R&B, soul, kind of funk a little bit.
I would say funk.
Yeah, funk, funk fusion. Yeah. I don't really know, and that's what's I think is exciting about it, and that's what you can expect in the audience, is that we'll touch on a bunch of different genres, kind of hodgepodge a lot of them together. But if we were to really stick with one, I'd say, yeah, probably funk or soul, something I don't know.
I know. I was like hesitant to even. That's why I asked you because I listened and I was like, man, this is very intersectional,
It's
very
all over the place.
fusion. Yeah, it was super good. So when did you guys get together?
So going back to the Love and Cup vocalist competition thing, I was lucky and privileged enough to be partnered with a coach, someone that would, each contestant would have a coach, and there was another local musician in the scene that helped guide them and choose songs and practice together. And I had the wonderful Amy Sheffer. I don't know if you've met her.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, she's astounding. So that was my coach, and we worked together for that. Obviously, COVID happened. Things kind of drifted apart with the vocals competition, and I guess she kept me in mind for when they were auditioning background singers for a band called Unpacked, which is another like jazz fusion, like so solid. They're great, and it's run by a man named Brother Wilson. And so somehow, very luckily, Amy put my name in the hat for that to audition, and they invited me over to meet everybody. And it was it wasn't actually the musicians of the band. It was Brother Wilson, Tommy, who plays drums, and then some of their mutual friends, just to kind of fill in a band for me to sing and audition to. Yeah. It wasn't an actual official gathering, and they weren't auditioning the other guys either. And so I got there, and that was really my first time that I was trying to, for lack of a word, like audition, like trying to show what I could do. That was really my first time doing that.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun, and I don't want to speak on the guys' behalf, but I immediately felt like some type of gel, like this click that I'd really never experienced that much before. So yeah, they kind of turned to me after 1 or 2 sessions, and they were like, all right, so actually we'll just be a band. And you don't need to do the backgrounds. Let's make our own project. I was like, okay, sure.
You mean it?
Yeah, like, oh, cool, me, are you sure? And so then, yeah, the rest of the guys ended up sticking around. We have Paul McCardle on guitar, Greg on keys. At that time we had Robbie on bass, but we have since had someone else. And that was like is that everybody? Am I missing anyone? It's so hard to think back. No, that was all of us to start off with. And it's just kind of built from there.
Cool. So versus the little session and decision to create the band, where do you guys stand now as far as performance, like group and frequency type arrangements go?
Sure. We practice every Monday, so after here, I'm headed on to band practice. And we've had a couple new members since the beginning. I'm trying to think, I'm really bad with timelines, but I'd say probably 6 months ago, Terrell joined the group. He plays keys, he sings, he writes, he's amazing. And then very recently, Tyrone has joined us on bass. And I was scared to have a new cast of people, because even one different person changes the whole sound, the whole dynamic. So I was a little nervous to see how all that would go, but the guys are stellar. They play so well. I had nothing to be worried about. But we do a couple of shows a year. We don't really play out all that often, but we're always working on something. We're doing a lot of originals right now, and then Tommy, where we rehearse, his place has like pretty much a full-fledged studio in it.
Wow.
So we have a lot of stuff that's in the works, and some of it's going to be coming out really soon. And one of our songs just came out, so I'm really excited.
That's what I was going to get to next.
Yeah.
So in December, you released a song.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about that.
That was my first time writing and putting it out into the universe. The guys came to me with the chords and the changes and like a general skeleton of the form of the song, and then I wrote the lyrics and the melody, and I was expecting them to be like, oh, it's okay, like, can we tweak this and this? And then they didn't say any of that, which was cool. And so we went to Wicked Squid Studios and we recorded it there. It was a live recording with a whole big band. I think it was like 11, 12-piece band. We had some really phenomenal like orchestral stuff, like cello, strings, and then we had some saxophone, and yeah, it was a whole thing. So really like had a loud entrance for our first song.
Wow.
Yeah.
What an experience that must have been.
It was.
So, for folks who aren't familiar with the live recording process, it seems so simple to just play a song and get it right, but it's not. What was the learning process of going from okay, we're going to do this, to, okay, let's get this in action. Let's market this.
Right.
Let's create graphics. Let's make sure it's ready for Spotify. Actually, would you first tell us the name of the song?
It's called On Your Side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And like you said, it came out in December.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, live recording, that was kind of my first experience, my first real, I don't really know how to phrase that, but yeah, my first real experience with that. A lot of instruments you can plug directly in.
Yeah.
So, you strum the electric guitar and you don't hear it out, you hear it through your headphones.
Yeah.
But vocals, different story. So there was an isolation booth I could have used, but then I would have been separate from everybody. So there was a little bit of pressure, at least vocally, because vocals and drums gonna bleed into each other. So you just kind of have to be okay with whatever happens. Try your absolute best. Know it's gonna be live and it's not gonna be perfect, but then also try to appreciate some of the beauty in those little flubs. It's just really authentic.
Yeah.
And I actually much prefer live recording because of that. It is daunting, but I don't know, there's something cool about maybe not nailing it, but the emotion's there.
Yeah. How many times did you play the song before you decided on the final recording that you were going to release?
I think we did 3 takes, maybe 4, can't remember. I was so freaked out and overwhelmed, but I think it was, now that I say it, maybe it was 4, and I think we used the third or the second to last, yeah.
Wow. That must have been a tremendous relief to finally have it completed.
It was, yes.
So you mentioned that you like doing the live recording more than the kind of track recording.
Sure.
So what is it about it that really sets it apart versus the track recording process, which is, every person goes individually, you lay down the tracks, you work it all out, you master it and mix it and all of that. So why do you prefer that less perfect sound in favor of the more genuine sound?
I think that's a good question. I think that it's really important to stay organic with music. You can go the opposite route and mix and master and edit and auto-tune. That's great. Some music sounds really good like that. And there's a time and place for that, of course. But I think there's something really just classic, for a lack of a better word, just really classic about people sitting down, standing up with their instruments and just putting it out there. The more curated stuff, the tracks, whatever, you're aiming for perfection. Essentially, at the end of the day, it's you want to be musical, yes, but it's how do I be as perfectly musical as possible, which is, again, time and place, that's awesome, but I find it more liberating and just generally more interesting to focus more on creating a moment. Live music is about a moment because you're there to experience it and then everyone goes home and you go home. So the moment is set parameters of that time. And I just like seeing what happens when that time happens, as opposed to aiming for perfection, because you're gonna go crazy. You can't really do that in a live setting. So I find it very freeing. Good.
That's really must be very gratifying to be able to really see that through and be able to experience that and then share it on this release that you put out. And you mentioned that this release is the first experience you've really had, writing a song and really exposing yourself that way. And of course now it's available to the whole world. You're out here talking about it. So how did you kind of move past any trepidation that you had initially about coming up with a melody and lyrics that people are going to hear and think about?
Well, to answer your question, I haven't gotten over it. I don't know if I ever will. It's very vulnerable. It's very, like I said before, it's very freeing, but it is very vulnerable and kind of goes against my nature to be hey everyone, this is what I think. So it's something that I think I'm always gonna have to kind of play around with and work on. But like you were saying earlier, it's really gratifying and it's really, I don't know, it's people have had a really good response to it, and so that kind of keeps you going and makes you think, well, maybe this isn't so bad, maybe I could do this again. And I guess it's one of those things that once you start, it makes it easier to continue to do so as you progress.
Yeah.
I'm hoping, at least.
I hope so too, for your sake, otherwise that'll be tough.
Yeah.
I bet you will though. Most people do, it seems.
Right, it's
to
just like
get
a
into
skill.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, like a
So
muscle.
exactly. So how long did it take you on this first go around to be able to create, like go through the process of creating your part of the song? And what was that process like ultimately?
I don't know what the guys did to get the instrumentation down.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember who came up with it. I think maybe it was Paul. Not sure. Someone came and said, "Hey, I have this idea," and then everyone jammed on it, and I was there listening, but I didn't contribute a single thing that day.
Okay.
And then the next week, I didn't contribute a single thing, and then the third week, I didn't contribute, but I was thinking the whole time.
Yeah.
And so then once I felt ready, kind of just sat down and Frankenstein all these different lyrics from all these different places. I have this big kind of like diary thing on my phone, and I kind of went back and just picked and chose what I thought would go together, and it went from there. It went pretty quickly, actually.
Cool. That's great. So now that you've gone through the whole process of, okay, we've listened, we figured out what I want to do, you kind of have a process in place for writing. Do you have hopes for more in the future? Do you have anything in the works?
Oh yes, we have lots in the works. We actually finished recording and doing all the video editing and stuff for another song, but I don't know when exactly it'll come out, so I don't want to give you false information on here.
Keep it.
But very soon.
Keep it under wraps.
Yeah.
We'll give everyone something to hold their breath for.
Within the next week, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe 2 weeks.
Okay, cool.
We have a show.
This will be coming out beyond that.
Oh, so maybe it's already out by now. I don't know. Depends.
Check it out. Cool. That's really exciting. So, what is have you guys done any touring at all?
Not with this group. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I mean, we did a gig in Buffalo, so if that counts, then yeah.
Have you done any touring?
I have, yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So while all of this has been going on, I mentioned jazz earlier.
Yeah.
There's a guy in Rochester. He's from Canada, but he's living with his family in Rochester. His name's Gordon Webster.
Okay.
And he does swing dance music.
That
it's
is
phenomenal.
So cool.
Yeah, it's really fun.
That's extremely cool.
Yeah, and he's really, really phenomenal at what he does. He's a great band leader, phenomenal musician, just a cool person.
Yeah.
And so I met him pretty much accidentally. I just sat in with the Swooners, run by Mark Bader. It was my first time really singing jazz in public like that, and it was at this big fancy hotel, and I was so intimidated. And like I said, first time singing jazz. Gordon happened to be there playing piano, and we kind of just went from there. And he does a lot of work in New York City, but he also does a lot of work internationally. There's Lindy Hop swing events all over the world. I had no idea until I met him that it's such a prevalent thing internationally. And so he travels internationally, like, I don't know, maybe 15 times a year. And last year in July, he took me to South Korea.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was really fun. It was phenomenal. And he's mentioned some stuff maybe in the future, like Spain, but I'm not going to hold my breath. So, yeah. So I've done some touring there in Boston with him, New York City, other places like that, yeah.
Tell us a little about this South Korean Lindy Hop swing dance situation.
Oh my god.
This seems to be like the juiciest, like...
It was so surreal. It was so surreal.
Is it a competition? Or just
It was more of like an exhibition for the dancers. It was 9 gigs over the course of 4 or 5 days. And everything was paid for, all expense, hotel, food, everything. It was like mind-blowingly awesome. And we had some gigs on the beach. The Korean government helped put that all together. And then we had some gigs and did various places on this little, I don't even really know what it was. I think it was a school. I couldn't read anything, so I'm not really sure what was going on. I was just put into a bus, and then we just show up random places and play and stuff. But some of those gigs went into 4:30 in the morning. These people dance, man, they dance. And that was the most phenomenal group of dancers I think I've ever seen. Just like very high skill, very involved dancers. They were so tremendously engrossed into jazz in a way that you don't really get in America. Not always, it really just depends on where you are. But I've never seen a saxophone player step off the stage and have a line of people wanting to get like items signed from them.
Wow.
But in Korea and apparently other parts of Asia, it's just a lot more highly regarded, and jazz musicians are a little bit more acknowledged. So that was really cool. Yeah, right.
So were
awesome.
the people that were dancing people who came to see you?
It was mostly people from Korea and Japan.
Okay.
And so they were there. We weren't the only band.
Okay.
I think there were 4 bands in total. One was from France. The other one, his name was Yusuf. He was from California. Another Japanese band, and then someone else some local acts.
Okay.
And so no, they weren't there just to see us, but they
were there to dance.
They were there to dance, and dance they did. Yes.
Wow. That sounds like a fantastic experience.
It was very surreal.
Oh my gosh. I had no idea anything like that existed.
Me neither, until I got the text saying, "Hey, you want to go to Korea?" I was like, yeah.
Oh yeah.
So Rochester,
Wow.
you have no idea how many phenomenal people are living there.
Absolutely.
Until you're in it, and then you just realize, wow, there's a lot going on.
Oh, absolutely. The music in the area is surprisingly rich.
Yeah, it is.
I have been totally delighted to learn about how much is really going on in the area, and seeing people come out to Geneseo. People come from all over Livingston County to check out some of these shows. We had a salsa night here recently.
At
Speaking
Drumroll?
of speaking of international, like surprising international experiences, we had on like a night that had a weather warning. 15 people showed up here. 15
Wow.
to salsa dance, and I was so delighted and surprised, similar to this swing dance in Korea type situation. Like that is just so cool.
Did you salsa?
I was working the soundboard,
Okay.
but tomorrow I might be hitting up salsa. It's Tropical Tuesday, so
A little
we'll see.
bachata or something?
Yeah, exactly. See what we've got cooking. But that's enough about our situation here. Wow. So, do you have a lot more jazz? What's your favorite thing to perform?
That's such a hard question. It's like picking a favorite child, which, I feel like all parents secretly have one, but they never admit it, so. I don't know. Is that horrible to say?
No, I think it's probably fair enough.
It's such a, because I think everything I'm doing currently is jazz adjacent. It has some foundation or leeway into jazz, so I want to say jazz, but I'm, like, Helium Bubble, I don't know if you could correctly describe it as that, and I really like that project too, so it's like
jazzy.
It's jazzy, exactly. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but anything that just feels good, anything that's got a cool groove, good beat, good pocket, I'm there. That's what I want to do.
Cool. What are your aspirations for the future of your personal music career, whether it be independent or with these groups?
That's something I think about every now and then. I don't really know. I think what's helped me and maybe hindered me at the same time, not sure, this whole time is that I don't really have any goals. I'm just trying to see where it can take me.
Yeah.
I'd love to travel. I think music and travel are married to a degree. Like it just goes hand in hand.
Absolutely.
And I adore that aspect of being on the road, traveling. So I guess I'd say, okay, I changed my answer mid-reply, to travel and to just be the best musician that I can be personally, and to continue to work on that craft.
Lovely. So are you hoping, you've developed now like a sign language like interest and career path, and a music career path and interest, which one of them do you see being your primary mission?
Both. I think I'm really lucky that they're both such flexible occupations.
Yeah.
I can't see myself, now that I've been introduced to the deaf community and I know people and I've seen the way in which the world works and how deaf people are supposed to fit into that world. I can't imagine walking away from that with that knowledge that I have now. But it's not something I could ever do full time, because it hurts my brain. And I don't know, it's just something that I like doing both in chunks.
Yeah.
I don't want to overexhaust myself in either or. I think that's key to continuing to enjoy something.
Yeah.
Is finding something you like, but don't wear yourself out. And so right now I'm walking that line really well. So I'm gonna say both because they both mean a lot to me.
Cool.
And as of now, it's really obtainable to do both.
Cool. Yes, and you could always become one of the legendary music interpreters. In Rochester, at least, there are these two ladies who kill it, and they are like my heroes. If they see this, I hope that they know who they are, certainly. Yes, and they are so good, and I know that it means a lot to people, so there's always that option. No pressure, but you could be a local legend.
I don't know. Music is really hard to interpret, actually.
I'm sure.
At least for me, because a lot of it's in like metaphors and poems and stuff. So it's like, do you give the actual like your eyes are like diamonds? Do you say your eyes are like diamonds, or do you be like your eyes are so pretty? Because that's what it means, you know?
Exactly.
That's where I really struggle with theatrical interpreting. I don't know.
Oh yeah, and I mean these women that I have seen just put everything into it. They must be exhausted.
Oh yeah.
By the end.
Yeah.
So, that was my immediate thought. When we met and you said you were doing sign language, I was like, you must know, like, these legendary ladies in town.
Oh, for sure. I don't know. I think their work is so untouchable. I'm just gonna let them do it. I'll stay over here.
Fair enough. Fair enough if it ain't broke.
Right, exactly.
Cool. Well, do you have any final thoughts, messages, inspiration, shout-outs, self-promotion that you want to give here before we wrap it up?
We have Helium Bubble has a Facebook page and an Instagram. Thank you, Tommy, who runs there. I'm not really involved with that, but check us out there. I have a personal Instagram where I post some originals, other music. I'm trying to my New Year's resolution is to kind of have a better conglomerate portfolio. So if that happens, I'll send it your way. Maybe you can attach it.
You got it.
Advice: drink a lot of water. And look both ways before you cross the street. That's it.
Perfect.
That's all I got.
Well, thank you so much, Julia. I'm so happy that we had the chance to have you on here today. And you're going to be performing at Drumroll March 1st.
Yes.
And we'll see you
there. Be there.
Yep. Perfect. Well, we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah,
thank you so much.